NBA analyst, and I just found out former volleyball player.
Volleyball state, don't say player, state champion.
Yeah,
volleyball state
amazing.
champion.
That's amazing, and I'm jealous, and that's amazing.
You're a good journalist.
I'm a phenomenal.
No one knows that information.
You know what else? Great volleyball player.
Oh,
if I do say so myself. Yes, Cece.
Cheers, Cece.
Hey.
Let's go on to
Had to get a drink because people went to the refrigerator to get something.
No, nobody did. No one went to the fridge. Everyone's back. Are you back? Here we go. Let's pick this up right where we left off. The NBA served up quite the main course this weekend, Sarah. Thunder and Rockets. Thunder are good when everything's clicking. So are my kids, by the way. Proof? OKC beat the Rockets 108-102. Right now, the Thunder are 46-34. They're tied with the Spurs and Pelicans and still not technically guaranteed a playoff spot. However, Russell Westbrook still has high hopes for the team's potential. Listen to this.
Man, we are a tough group, man. I know when we play our best, nobody can beat us. And I stand strong by that, and I always believe in the guys in the locker room, and did a great job of competing tonight.
All right, what do you think, Sarah? Do the Thunder have a chance to knock off the top teams in the West?
It depends who we're talking about. If you're talking about top teams, including the Golden State Warriors, and if the way things match up, they catch them in the first round, I think the way the Warriors are playing, and without Steph Curry, they can give them a match. Do I think that Oklahoma City can knock off Houston? No way. And you look at the way in which Oklahoma City has been playing, and that was a big win against Houston. But I still go back to the the assist percentage and the way in which they don't share the basketball. And I think when it comes to the playoffs, possession style playing, and we talk about this with Toronto all the time, how they've changed the way they played, but they have not been able to advance because of their one-on-one style, isolation style. That's Oklahoma City to me. And so you've got a player like Russell Westbrook, who I believe can win you games. Paul George, the type of playoff experience he has. Carmelo Anthony, despite the fact he hasn't been in the playoffs in 5 seasons, but we know that his game goes up a level. But a lot of it is jump shooting. A lot of it is when you're playing the same team, can game plan against that team, and how you can structure your defense to try and stop them. I think they are going to have a lot of difficulties in the postseason, despite the fact that they have these 3 all-stars and the defending MVP of the league.
I'd have more confidence if it was a different format. If it was like the NCAA tournament that we came out of, you know, one and done, yeah, they would have a chance because you get the right matchup. You win 1 game, you could do it. If it was the NFL playoffs, it's one and done. It would suit better for their style because they are talented and they do have one superstar.
Even CC, if it was the way it used to be, best of 5, you'd feel better about it.
Right.
Not as good, but you'd feel better about it.
Because of Russ.
Yeah, they only got to win 3.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 less game to win because it comes this. Do I see him beating Kevin Durant 4 times? No. Do I see him beating James Harden? No. He's not going to be able to do that 4 times. And you can't depend on Melo. You said it's that. He hasn't been in the playoffs when?
In 5 years.
So how we know what he's going to do? You think he's going to step up? Like jump shooters late in the season, their legs start to fail them. And that's what you start to see with Melo. Now, in the playoffs, the games are a little more spread apart. But from a defense, he's still going to be a liability. Paul George. What Paul George are we going to see? So, no, I believe that Houston, the way they've played and their talent is superior, even though they did lose this game, superior to OKC. They won't have a problem with OKC or Golden State, even though we haven't seen Steph back playing with them.
OKC also struggles to score at times, and if you look at their point, they're first in the league in points off turnovers. They're first in the league in steals and second chance points. I think third in fast break points. You don't get those same type of offensive production and generation from your defense, I think, because of the possession game in the playoffs as they might now. So I think that's a major area of concern.
I do want to give OKC full credit for what happened this weekend, though. We talked about it quite a bit. The Rockets all year long lost 2 games, had lost 2 games with Harden, Paul, and Capella. And OKC went there and beat them. By the way, they weren't resting anybody. Harden played 36 minutes. Chris Paul played 36 minutes. They you know what I mean? This was one of those.
There's one thing coming down the stretch. The teams that have to win, though, you see the intensity is ratcheted up. Agree. You know, Steve Kerr mentioned it over the weekend. It's totally different when you're in the playoffs, even though Houston is playing well. Yes, and they were trying to win. But there are teams out there that are desperate. And when you turn on the TV, you're like, wow, you can tell which team is desperate.
Agreed. And that was maybe the biggest edge OKC had. But I'll give them another bit of credit. This was the first game since Christmas against a really good opponent, OKC has won without Russ having one of those magical Russ games. 35, 14, 9. Like, Russ, not like he played poorly, but 24, 7, and 10, that's basically below his averages in almost every category. So, like, in fact, it is just below his averages in every single category. So, they deserve credit in that. And there was one other interesting note. If this is a first-round matchup, Russ guarding Harden, particularly down the stretch. Russ asking to guard Harden. You made, though, an interesting point about the style in which Oklahoma City plays not a lot of assists. Right now, it's funny. The two top offenses in the league, Golden State and Houston. Golden State has more assists than anybody by a wide margin. Houston, bottom 5 in the league in assist rate. Why? Well, Houston is successful that way because, as their GM says, they might have the best isolation player ever in James Harden, and Chris Paul is an excellent isolation player. OKC doesn't have that type of skill set for Russ or Paul George. Melo's really their only guy who in his career had been an isolation star, but he's now in a different phase of his career.
So if there is a team that can put it all together and beat one of those, even if it's one night or two nights, does this Oklahoma City team have that ability? They have to click on all cylinders.
They have to click on all
admittedly.
cylinders. And I think they've got to do the attention to detail on they're first in the league in offensive rebounding. Steven Adams is an absolute monster, and they get a lot of second chance opportunities and possessions because of that. But they're vulnerable on the defensive end rebounding. Also against different matchups, when teams like a Houston can spread you out, go 5 out, and you've got Steven Adams trying to run around and guard a guy like Clint Capella who can move, or if they go with 5 perimeter players that can shoot the 3, that I think becomes a matchup problem for a team like OKC.
And Russ, as a perimeter defender, is not dependable. Yeah, he did a good job, but he's not. He has not been that way. When Russ goes across the court, he does not have the same intensity that when he dresses with them clothes he wears and that he has on the offensive end. There's a different player on the defensive end on a regular basis throughout his career.
And with that being said, Corey Brewer has done an excellent job since they brought him over, but not having Andre Robertson changes the entire complexion of the Thunder defense, and he can take off a lot of pressure that now Russell Westbrook has to guard guys that he used to have to defend on the wing.
All right, Sarah, stick around. Coming up, can the 76ers make the NBA Finals? Woo, that's next on First Things First. Tell us about that.
It is crazy that we're talking